myself again. But it's the only...
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's Tuesday night, and as always on a Tuesday, we have Liam Kennedy here from the Shields Gazette. Hi, Liam.
All right. Yeah, there hasn't been any games or anything to talk about, but there's plenty goings on off the field, isn't that, to get our teeth into this week?
Unbelievable, really, isn't it, when you look at the week that we've had, and no football, but no let up in stuff that you can talk about. And last night's girls' show, if you haven't seen it, ladies' night, was absolutely chock-a-block, but it was funny as well. We had a good laugh last night. So if you've missed that this week, or it's not one that you tend to watch, give it a watch last night, because Sav, Katie and Kendall were in fine form. I had plenty of laughs in it, and it's what you've got to do sometimes as a Newcastle fan. Otherwise, you would end up having a nervous breakdown. Where do we start? Well, let's start with Project Big Picture, Liam. We've had a couple of chats offline about this, and unbelievable, really, to see the cartel almost showing their hand after the obvious interference in our takeover during the last few months. They've now come out and really shot themselves in the foot with this whole move to try and take control of the Premier League, usurp a few teams, one of which would be Newcastle United. But it stinks of arrogance and greed.
Everyone has a price. The important thing is to find out what that is. You're a true crime fan, Steve. You're a true crime author. Who said that? And how does it apply?
It's a good one. I saw you put that up, and I was wondering whether it was Al Capone.
Pablo Escobar. Similar kind of character. Not as involved in drugs, but I saw that, and it's a hell of a quote. But it's very apt for this Premier League attempt at greed and basically just taking over things. It just stinks. The cartel really showing the hand. Yeah, it does stink. It's a blight on the English game, this constant threat of they perceive themselves. That's what they do. They perceive themselves as the big six of English football. They're nowhere near the biggest six in English football. Manchester City do not belong anywhere near in that company. If the likes of an Aston Villa or Newcastle United don't belong in that company, then nowhere near Man City do either. And they're determined to hive themselves off and make themselves richer and leave everybody else by the wayside. Well, my stance after humming and hawing about this for the last few days, I've always sort of stood by the stance that it's almost criminal, the power play and the attempt, the power grab. They're trying in the Premier League, taking advantage of lower league clubs' plight, the lack of money, pass this through, and we'll give you a little sweetener. But further down the line, they'll just cancel it anyway. So it's the FSA described it quite aptly as a sugar-coated cyanide pill, and I think that is a fantastic way of describing what this olive branch that the Premier League, supported by Manchester United and Liverpool primarily, supported by Lieutenant Parry, who's chairman of the EFL. I think it's an insult. It's an insult to the English game, and I'm really pleased that it's been reacted to in the way that it has. Fans, even of those perceived, or as they perceive themselves, the power of big six in English football. Even their fans are coming out and saying this isn't right. This is totally wrong. And you know what? My stance on it is anti-competition. In British law, you cannot have a competition that doesn't allow everybody some kind of even playing field. This would allow the Premier League to have control over everything that happened, not just in the Premier League, but below that as well. So they're promising a little bit of cash, which actually, when you look at the figures, doesn't really equate to much more than what's spent anyway on the likes of parachute payments and otherwise, and whatever filters down. It's only a tiny little bit more. They're offering that to basically allow themselves to rule over every single club in English football. If you're in the Championship, they can say you're not being taken over by X, Y, and Z because we don't want you to. You won't get promoted if that's the case. They're saying to the likes of Newcastle United,
You can't have success because we decide when we have success and when someone else can become involved in this. It is an absolute disgrace. But the benefit of all this is that there's fans across the country now are realising that Newcastle United fans and people involved who've really studied this takeover process and know a lot of the details, what we've been saying all along, that it absolutely stinks. And the Premier League have got agendas. Clearly, the clubs have got agendas. And they did not want Newcastle United to be a part of their little club that they were going to set up that was going to rule over everybody else. And you know what? I've come round to the idea this is all about power. It's all about the threat of a breakaway. We're seeing it now with Greg Clark talking about, oh, well, they threatened they would break away, so he broke off talks. And this is the guy from the chairman from the FA. It's obvious that this European Super League thing, go. It will be better English football. If that's what English football you want English football to be, is in a power grab and you controlling everybody else. Good riddance. Good riddance to bad rubbish. See you later. Go and play your poxy games in Europe, your pretendy Champions League, and see how many fans really enjoy that. And do you know what? The clubs are going to drag along with them. Your West Ham, that'll not suit you. Not suit you at all. And Everton and others. See how your fans really, how much they buy into that idea that they're going to be traipsing around Europe playing in a load of second-rate European clubs. It'll be fine for Manchester United or fine for Liverpool, who've wanted this for a long, long time. But for the rest of us, we'd be better off. We'd be totally better off without those clubs trying to control. If it's a pure choice between those clubs gone and their future, which they've painted out quite obviously over the last 2 or 3 days, I would take a league without the perceived Big Six every single day of the week. I think it really does. If this wasn't a family show, I'd be turning the air blue by now, because it really does wind me up, this idea.
It doesn't stop Katie on ladies' night.
Well, I work for a family publication as well, so I'll try and keep it clean.
Jonathan Ward's asking, can you explain the project big picture and what ramifications it has for Newcastle United, especially any future takeover?
Well, look, if the idea of it, let's not take this takeover. If there's an idea of a takeover of any club outside of that 6, then they can have a say on it. They can, if one of them objects to it, it can be vetoed totally. So they've basically got control. They press all the buttons on what happens in English football. And really, for the amount of money that they're offering clubs outside the top flight, it's ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. The whole concept is an embarrassment, total embarrassment. And the fact that it's even been given credence by the likes of Rick Parry and even some really respectful journalists, respectful analysts. I've seen Gary Neville talking about it, Jamie Carragher. I've seen these people. Of course, they've got vested interest in it. Their clubs are the right side of history, and we're not. And obviously, we're going to sit here and say it's going to be detrimental to Newcastle United. But I'm taking my Newcastle United hat off in all of this. And I'm looking at it purely from an English football perspective. It steals the integrity out of English football. We all know the teams with money at the top control the game to an extent, but they do not make decisions for other clubs around them. It has to be a majority decision, 14 out of 20 in the Premier League. And I've seen Rick Parry talking about Huddersfield shouldn't have the same vote as Manchester United. He was talking about this last season. Yeah, they should. Every team in the Premier League is part of that group, and we all should have a level playing field. They've already had enough power to be able to issue through the idea that they get more money from the TV because they bring more money to the table. It wouldn't be a game without the rest of us in the Premier League. And to take away that, to put a glass ceiling in place at 6th place in the Premier League is criminal. And it wouldn't surprise me if it was criminal, if there wouldn't be some kind of court proceedings taken by people who this was to the detriment of, because it goes against UK law, in my opinion, goes totally against the idea of anti-competition. If this were to go through, it is the cartel. As I mentioned, it's up there with the Medellin cartel. It's up there with all the crime ones you can think of, because it is absolutely criminal.
Yeah, it is 100%, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that over the next few days. And there seems to be a few twists and turns. Obviously, the Football Supporters Association having a go, the fans from the top 6 clubs saying that they're not interested in it whatsoever, and obviously the Premier League Big Six hoying their toys out the pram. So I'm sure we'll see more develop over the next few days. Martin's asking, was Money Mike Ashley's tweet about you last night? Yes, it was. He thinks I'm Kate Stewart, which is a change from people thinking I'm Money Mike Ashley, it has to be said. As always, when we get you on, people are keen to know what's going on in the club with regards to, potential injuries or transfers, etc. Tom Dixon put something up about Jamal Lewis a little earlier. Any updates on Jamal Lewis and whether that's looking at, as if he could be on the sidelines?
Look, I don't know a lot about the Jamal Lewis. I've just seen it broke. Scott Wilson's done a story in the last hour or so. Yeah, it would be a real concern. Unfortunately, I can't give any more detail on what the injury may be and the length of time he may be out. But effectively, he's the only left back we have in the squad. Were he to be injured, you'd be looking at Javier Manquillo playing on the left, which isn't ideal. So yeah, it's one of the areas that we looked at, and in an ideal world, we to pick a squad from scratch. You would ideally have signed another left back to cover, or you would somehow miraculously get Paul Dummett to play more than half a season, which seems to be his norm over the last few years. Unfortunately, a fantastic player and character, but just doesn't seem to get fit. But yeah, it is a concern. And when you only have one player in certain positions, left back is a problematic one. We know the striker and Alan St. Maximin's a match winner. Where you get injuries to these type of players, then you are scraping the barrel a little bit, and you get a bit concerned that it would be a return to the status quo of last season. So we'll wait and see on Jamal Lewis. I think it's one that we're going to have to wait and see and play out. Steve Bruce will be talking at the end of the week, and I think we'll find out a little bit more then. But it may well come out. Obviously, there's connections at Newcastle, between Newcastle, and Northern Ireland, with Steve Harper being on the coaching staff of both. So there may be leaks come out here and there.
Okay, James Brown saying, evening guys, is there anything in the Atsu rumour about going out on loan to Forest?
Yeah, there could well be, because Nottingham Forest are a club who are really keen to bring Christian Atsu to the club. It's been mentioned previously, Watford have been clearing the decks effectively, seen getting rid of certain players on free transfers just to free up room, like Daryl Janmat and others, former Newcastle player, have been released. So yeah, it's one that does have legs. And to be honest, Atsu has been an okay servant to Newcastle United, and there'll be a lot of Championship clubs, if they have the cash. That's the key. If they have the cash, will be really keen to take a Christian Atsu on loan, because he would just give them a little bit of quality. I've always throughout the summer mentioned that Celtic were really interested. It just never developed. I did at the start of summer think that could be one that developed, but Celtic decided to spend their money on the likes of Duffy from Brighton and others just to strengthen their squad. I think Christian Atsu would have been one that may well have developed further had an Odsonne Edouard, for example, come to Newcastle. There was interest. There were talks as well. That's a little one for you, tiny little excuses. There were talks.
Yeah.
This is pre-Callum Wilson, of course. But there were talks, and I know Aston Villa are another club who were very, very keen to get Odsonne Edouard in. But again, plump for Ollie Watkins, and who can complain that the business done by Villa and Newcastle in the striker department has been really solid. But Atsu probably could have been one heading north of the border. And if a Championship move on loan is what we turn out with, it wouldn't surprise me to see Atsu pop up north of the border in the summer.
Okay, David Fowle says, what happens when, let's say, they get their own way, when they get sick, they decide they want a European League? Then what happens if they get sick of that? Will they want a World League? I mean, I suppose that's a big thing, isn't it? It's where does this end, Liam, if they do get the European League?
Look, it's what they've hinted at that they want all along, and for me, like I said before, I stand by that. Good riddance. If that's what you want, and you want to corrupt the English game, because of that want, then for me, I would open the door and I would take them across Europe myself. Get yourselves away, because we don't need that in the English game. It is what it is. The Premier League is the most watched division in the world for a reason. I don't watch a huge amount of European football. Watch little bits from Spain and Germany. But there is a competitiveness about the Premier League, and it takes a lot of stick, because the idea is, it isn't the best. There is a competitiveness about the Premier League whereby on any given day, mostly in most seasons, anybody can give anybody a game. That isn't necessarily the case with the teams at the bottom in Spain and the teams at the bottom in Germany. Serie A is a bit more of a leveler. But yeah, that's why it is watched by so many. And that's the one thing that gets lost in all of this, which is why I'm open to, if you want to go to European League, go, is the idea that the money and the control is with the top clubs. They already feel that way. And they just want to cement that in law, effectively football law.
Yeah.
They don't deserve any more, because for every game against Manchester United, every game they play against Liverpool, Arsenal and Tottenham, they also still have to play Fulham, Newcastle United and Aston Villa. Without that, there isn't a league. So you can't treat clubs, historic English clubs like Aston Villa, Newcastle United, even Leeds United, and others as you go down the pyramid. Come on, I'm a Newcastle United fan, but Sunderland are a massive club in English football. You cannot treat all of these clubs, even outside of the top division, as second-class citizens. And that's what this top six are trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, Sunderland, I heard Ian Botham mention it when he was on about becoming a Lord. £450,000 a game they lose each time they don't have supporters in the ground. And that just can't continue. No. You would expect if there's no financial help for these teams, including Sunderland in the lower leagues, then, they could go out of business. There's no doubt about it. We'll start to see them fall like dominoes once that October furlough deadline passes, and, they have to make some huge decisions. So interesting. We'll watch that with interest.
Steve, that's how little they care, though. That's how little these teams at the top care. They're more interested in lining their own pockets and feathering their own nest as compared to looking after. They'll have players throughout their team who've either spent loan spells or been picked up as kids because they've been nurtured at lower league clubs. That is the lifeblood of the game. And there is enough food at the table in English football for everybody to eat. But the thing is, the people at the top are just hoarding it to themselves. And they've shown their hand this week. And it's been actually quite liberating in a sense that it's all out there for everybody to see. And those little dots that we all joined up in the summer as to why this didn't happen, why that didn't happen. I'm not going to go into the exacts, but everybody in this country can now see why the perceived cartel did not want somebody else gate crashing their party.
Yep. Tom's asking if this, how much does it tie into Henry's soon-to-be public company listing via SPAC? Investors only want in for a guaranteed thing. I mean, it could all be tied in, I suppose.
Yeah, of course it could. I mean, the detail on that's quite sparse, so we'll have to wait and see, I suppose.
Yeah, okay. Keith says the big six are just looking after themselves. Jonathan says, what is the likelihood of big picture being voted for? It seems unlikely to be so desperate for 250 million. Andy says, wait till they start dictating. It didn't quite finish his message there. Andy says, the league is meant to be an independent organisation separated from the football clubs. But I remember Mr. Masters saying that no club was involved about a takeover. I think this clearly shows that there was. Jason just compliments you. He says, well said, Liam. Hasty-esque rants are always welcome and you're talking complete sense. Andy says, wait till they start dictating, their players can't go. All right, okay. James is talking about 1495. We'll come to that in a bit. If Man U and Liverpool want 18 teams in the EPL, see you later then. Off you go. And Funko is going on about Katie. Katie's a real woman. Go on, lame lad. It's an 18-rated show. So just talking about Katie's use of the swear words on our Monday night show. But it is an over 18 show. So, you feel free to do it. John says the big picture will never happen. And Rob says Man United and the big sis. They're languishing in 16th at the minute, which is a fair point. Tom says, let them go. Nobody will care. The fans don't want it. It'll collapse. And when they come crawling back, let them back in at the bottom of the pyramid. So plenty of comments coming in via the text service on YouTube. So please continue to put them in and we'll try and get through as many as we can. Big thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals. As always, he has been our main sponsor over the last month, local independent family business. And also a big shout out to John and the lads at QTech, qtech.shop.co.uk, who make pool tables and snooker tables in the Northeast. And again, they have been a big sponsor to us throughout the last few months. So yes, we will come to the Man United
charge, shall we say, £14.95, Liam, to watch a game. We thought this was going to be the only problem that we're going to have during the international break. But yeah, £14.95 to watch this game. What did he make of that?
Look, there's some meetings going on tomorrow. The exact people in these meetings, I don't 100% know. But fingers crossed we will see some kind of climb down on this subject. Again, it is profiteering, and it's in its worst kind. And it's embarrassing that 19 of the 20 clubs reportedly voted for it, Leicester being the only one that didn't. It's an extortionate amount of money for any fan to play. Obviously, Steve, we're both big boxing fans. We're used to paying pay-per-view for the big fights. These are big fights that will take place once every 6 months. Now, of course, there is pay-per-view, maybe 1 to 2 every month, whether that be on your American TV or UK TV. But most boxing fans that I know are quite selective. They may well just go for an Anthony Joshua. They may well have been Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, maybe others, Canelo, etc. But they'll pick and choose what they want to do, and that's okay. They'll pay £20 here, £20 there. The Premier League are effectively asking for football fans, some of whom who've already paid for that match to be able to watch it, to pay again on top of what they've already paid, with no idea of when they're going to get a refund. I know lads who paid up front last March. I know lads who are paying monthly for the privilege of having a season ticket will not give that up because they don't want to lose their seat. But they're being asked to pay twice for games that they've already paid for. And that's another thing that stinks. It's purely about money, this. And we're also talking about a product that was given free. It was given free for weeks and months during Project Restart and then into the start of the season. And that's about right. There's no reason why this has been broadcast around the world to virtually every other country in the world. I think we've talked about it on here. It's only Saudi Arabia league who aren't getting it legally, and probably North Korea and maybe a couple of others, and potentially China now, depending on what they've managed to do on that deal. But it's a scam, and you know what? It was really heartening to see so many people come out and say, you know what, I'm going to stick that £15 into a pot where people need it, and they went with the West End Food Bank, which was really heartening to see. Do you know what? I'd be doing exactly the same. The fact is, I have to watch it for work. I'm not going to be there on Saturday. I have to watch it, but I'm fully supportive of everybody else who's refusing to pay that fee because it's a scam, it's a farce, and it's something that, like I say, was already going to be broadcast anyway. There's no need to charge fans on top of what they already pay. I'm talking about fans who pay already, but some pay for. Most people have Sky packages, BT packages, and that's what this is part of. It's meant to be part of that package that you get. You won't get all the games, but you get games for free because you buy into it. And they're being asked to pay pay-per-view. It's shocking, really. And the pricing, do you know what? I don't think many people would have complained if they'd come out and said something like it's $5.99 or even less, like $3.99 for a game. They would have still got some revenue from it. There probably would have a lot more people, and there would have been less complaints because it's pocket money stuff. People wouldn't have minded chipping a few quid in because they want to watch the game. But the fact that they made it a $15.99 and pinning it and putting it in the bracket of a world title heavyweight fight, for example, week in, week out, you might have a game that's pay-per-view on a Saturday, and you might have one on a Tuesday, and then the Saturday after. They're asking people to fork out potentially within the space of 8 to 10 days, fork out the best part of 50 quid just to watch games. And they might have already paid for the Sky package at 90 quid for that month. And they might well have already paid for the season ticket, which was 50 quid coming out the pot at the start of the month. It is a disgrace, but it just underlines what we've always known and what we've always thought, that it's all about the cash. And this all just plays into the same narrative that they're not interested about me and you. They're interested about themselves and feathering their own nest.
And to put it on at the same time as the boxing, I mean, you mentioned earlier we're both boxing fans, but to have it clashing with Lewis Ritson's fight is absolutely ludicrous.
Oh, the interest in Newcastle United and Lewis Ritson is massive. In Newcastle, the city of Newcastle. Most of Lewis Ritson's fans in the area are Newcastle United fans, and they're going to be torn between the idea of watching that Sky fight for their fighter who hasn't been out for a long time, coming in a big fight, really big step-up fight for him after his disappointment earlier in his career. And and to make people choose between that and Newcastle United against Manchester United, which in any given calendar year is a massive game and would draw in a lot more Newcastle fans who may not watch every game. I think it's a real shame, and I think they've really missed an opportunity. To be honest, it's really short-sighted from Sky really to have decided to pin both of those games on at the same time together.
Crazy. Barry's mentioned the T word, takeover. Rumours that Ashley wants 10% more if the takeover goes through. Any ideas? We can talk about the takeover. You did a fantastic article about it this week in the Shields Gazette, which people can see online. Run through that article. You can answer Barry's question as part of your answer, but run through what the article was about for those who missed it.
So the article was the idea that there's been a lot of rumours flying around on Twitter and social media in the last couple of weeks with regard to meetings that have taken place, planes coming in, this kind of thing. So what I tried to do with that article was kind of put people in, give them an idea without, I obviously can't go into certain details, but give them an idea of where we kind of stand. And the concept that some people were constantly messaging me saying it's imminent, is it going to happen this week? I just wanted to settle people down a little bit. It's my understanding that isn't anything imminent. The idea of a short-term fix to this, because it's gone down the legal avenue, is a little bit distant. So it's not the long term that people are looking at, but at the medium term is how I described it. And I would suspect the things that are going on behind the scenes now between various parties may well bear fruit towards the end of the year, in and around the Christmas time, or potentially into January. So timescales are key. I also mentioned on the end of that article that it's my information that a higher fee has been agreed. Now, I don't know what whys and wherefores as to why there has been a higher fee, but there have been cost implications with regards to the way this has gone forward. And it is Mike Ashley and his trusted confidant Justin Barnes who have been tasked with getting this deal done. It isn't somebody like PIF or PCP who are dealing with this day in, day out. This is a Mike Ashley thing. He holds the cards. He's got everything that he needs, and his legal team are attacking this now. We've talked about the 2 QCs that he employed from Blackstone Chambers, but there is more to this as well. There is a lot going on behind the scenes with regards to legals that hopefully will bear some kind of fruit. I do believe in it. I said it in the article as well. I don't necessarily think if this should take 18 months, 2 years, I'm not saying it will, but were the legal action to take something like that, then it could be detrimental to the deal, because Newcastle United is unlikely to be worth the same amount. The deal is probably going to become null and void at that point. So I don't think there is an indefinite wait from the money men. They won't stay around forever. But there's a lot of people messaging us this week saying they're not really there. No, they're not interested. Steve, you probably back me up on this, that everybody is still working for this deal, that to my information, and everybody is still at the table.
Yep. Yeah, 100% they are, mate. There's no doubt about it. It's in the hands of lawyers now, and we've just got to sit back and wait and see what happens. I don't really think, and a lot of people asking if this whole Big Six thing, makes any difference. Well, of course it doesn't at the minute, because it does look highly unlikely. And I said this to you offline a couple of days ago that this will go through. I just felt, they're putting a shot across the bow, seeing what public reactions like, and seeing what the reactions like from the rest of the Premier League, and the fans have completely dissed it. So, I can't see it going through, but I don't think that affects the takeover. It'll be interesting to see what happens, though. You would imagine that, PIF, having been so patient, would want some kind of resolution to this sooner rather than later.
Yeah, very much so. I think having put so much work in, having felt that the deal was going to get done, I just don't feel they'll need to have this sort of lingering and looming in the background for ages. I do think Mike Ashley will continue with this, even with the money to walk away, which I'm not suggesting it's going to. But even with a deal to fail, I still believe that Mike Ashley will keep on at this, because, and I do think there will be people from the buyer's side want some kind of reparations for reputational damage, financial efforts that have gone into this. I think everybody will get something back from it. Fingers crossed we get what we want. And I say we as a collective, as Newcastle United fans, is that, and as a journalist as well, of course, I want I want to be able to report on a successful Newcastle United. I want to be able to report on a Newcastle United that is trying to be the best Newcastle United that it can possibly be. And we've known for a long time that this version of Newcastle United is static, boring. It has lulls. It goes from we see reasonable success as signing players, average Premier League players, or reasonable success as beating top 6 teams in the last minute. That's not Newcastle United, and that's not the Newcastle United I want of the future either.
No, definitely not. Couple of quick answers to these, Liam, because we've got quite a bit to go through. John saying reducing the Premier League to 18 clubs massively devalues the league at a stroke. What's your thought on that?
Yes, I do. I think the reason behind it is so there's more free time in the calendar for these top teams to play around with their European games, isn't it? To me, I think it's fine as it is. Why would you break something fix something that doesn't really seem broke?
Mm-hmm. Munch says, do you think the guys think that the PPV matches pay-per-view will stay, or do you think there'll be a U-turn?
Well, I'm hoping there'll be a U-turn. I think there's going to be a significant amount of pressure placed on the Premier League clubs. There's got to be also a little bit of care taken as how that pressure is exerted, because the government can't be deciding what private sort of organisations, private groups do. It's ultimately their decision. But I do think the government, with a greater interest at heart, is in people's wallets, people's interests, people's mental health. I think the government will exert some pressure. And it wouldn't surprise us, it may well stay as it is this week, but moving forward, maybe next month or so, or whatever, there might be some kind of climb down. I certainly hope so anyway.
Michael says, do you think international friendly should be scrapped? I mean, I'm not a big international fan. I don't know whether you are. Certainly not a big fan of having 3 international games back to back when we've got players involved. I think it's absolutely ludicrous.
It's not often we do have players involved, is it? I think that's probably why it's hit me so hard this time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's a case either way. I'm not really somebody that gets particularly triggered by international football until, like you say, a Newcastle United player comes back injured from it. Friendlies are a little bit pointless. I still see a place in some capacity where a beat would be, for example, a commemorative game. Somebody's 100th cap or something. I could see the idea behind it, but ultimately, competitive football is better than friendly football, isn't it? So if something had to go from the international calendar, I think friendlies would probably be the first on the list.
Himanshu says, Liam, you did a story on Saudis paying 10% for the takeover.
10% more.
10% more. Yeah. Okay. I think he's talking about something that we put in before. Do you think the government will step in to stop the Big Six takeover? Do you think the government will get involved?
Yeah, I think they might well. Yeah, I think there's already been a lot of there's been a lot of heads banging together this summer, and that's not just the Newcastle United takeover. That's with regards Project Restart, showing games live for free. I do think there will be some pressure exerted, and I think like I say, I've got high hopes that common sense in some ways will prevail. And I believe some of those meetings are taking place tomorrow. Whether we see any sort of plans come to fruition for this weekend, with all that already planned at 14.95 or whatever it may be, but hopefully moving forward, we won't see people robbed blind. Moving forward, where they might be asked to pay for, if their game's not scheduled to be on Sky, they might be asked to pay. Like I say, you could end up having 3 games in 7 or 8 days. And you might be asked to pay the best part of 50 quid just to watch your team. It's
ridiculous.
Ludicrous, yeah.
Everybody's saying it's going to increase piracy 100%, so we all know that. Himanshu says, any idea how the 14.95 is going to be divided between the 2 clubs? God knows. That's a hell of a question. Darlington apparently charging $7.99 to watch their matches, which is bizarre. Jason, yes, thank you, mate. Almost 400 watching, only 68 likes. Just give the thumb. Oh, click. Well deserved. Thank you very much.
Can I mention something on that, Steve, before we move on?
Yeah, go for it.
The idea that Darlington would charge $7.99, it's a different audience. So you're talking about a much smaller supporter base. And I've worked in non-league football. I've covered Hartlepool for 2 years. There is more of a collective atmosphere among fans at that level. So you'll go to away games. There might only have been, I'll take Hartlepool, for example. There may have only been 50 fans would travel all the way down to Maidenhead or Maidstone or Dover, for example. But a lot of those will buy a programme and they will buy a pie because that's what keeps the world going round. They don't mind spending a little bit of their money to keep everything moving. There's a lot of fans like that in non-league football. And I don't think there's a lot of Darlington fans will complain too much about having to pay a reasonable fee. It's below £10 to watch their team because they'd have to pay a lot more than that whether to go to the gate anywhere in the country. I think it's a big difference. I think the Premier League, there is enough money there that they don't have to rob the supporters blind.
Yeah. Do you think there'll be any loan deals coming in, says Tom?
No, I don't think they will. I think Newcastle are done for business. They were done for business quite some time ago.
Yeah, Tom's also saying you must have been out and bought a new lamp. It's great. We can see you this week.
I'm trying. Honestly, I said to Steve before we came on, I'm going to need a makeup artist and I'm going to need like a lighting specialist. It's going to cost me a fortune to start coming on these YouTubes.
People are only interested in what you say, mate, so don't worry about that. Mark says, look what happened to Portugal. Ronaldo got tested positive for COVID. It can happen to any international team. This is very true. You saw that breaking today. Wayne says, I think it's fair to say Liam is one of many journalists out there, but he seems to be sincere and trustworthy. Plus, the fact that he genuinely wants the best for the club goes a long way.
That's nice to hear. Thanks, Wayne. And I do. Like I've said on numerous occasions, I've taken some criticism from within the industry for this, but I can't hide what I am. I was a Newcastle United fan well before I was a writer, and even the days when I'm finished being a writer, I'll still be a Newcastle United fan.
Yeah, Paul reckons it's 95 pence to Newcastle and £14 to Man U plastics. Interesting. Andy says, do we think the international break should have waited until till the league was past Christmas?
Look, I think there's because of the way this has happened, nobody expected it. There were international obligations that needed to be fulfilled. We've got the Nations League, etc. The qualification for next year, Euro 2020 in 21. So no, I think it just has to carry on. But I think it's definitely something that can be rethought moving forward.
Yeah, Rich Story says Oliver Dowd made an interesting comment about the Premier League yesterday about looking into the league after recent revelations and other things. Yeah, I saw that. He certainly must have been talking about the Premier League's attempts to stop Newcastle's takeover. Darren says, evening lads, let the top six run away to a Super League when they all struggle against Bayern, etc. They'll want to come running back. I think a lot of people have said that. Darren says, if the Premier League are charging $14.95 for the game, imagine how much they are charging the pubs to show the game. Yeah, that's the places where pubs are open, I suppose. Kenneth just says, good evening.
Yeah. Sorry, Steve, but there should be a want for that kind of thing to be avoided because, people congregate. And I've seen, I used to work up in Scotland. I have a lot of friends in Scotland and I follow a lot of people from Scottish Twitter. And the scenes from Scotland whereby they went to a penalty shootout in their game recently, the Euro 2020 qualifier. And there were pictures of fans who got locked out of pubs because they all shut at 10 o'clock, then proceeded to congregate on the windows and doors outside so they could still watch because they wouldn't have time to get home. And pubs kept the game on, but they couldn't keep them inside. No masks, everybody close together. There should be a want. Everybody should be working together for the same thing here. We should be trying to limit the spread of this disease, not encourage it. And I think the idea that more people staying at home to watch games, make it affordable, make it accessible, would probably make more sense. I mean, you're still going to get people want to go out. You're still going to get people use the house to congregate. But I genuinely think it would probably reduce the risk a little bit rather than pushing everybody to go to pubs. Because realistically, are a lot of people going to pay $14.95? Is your next door neighbour and the one on the other side, are they all going to pay for the same game? You know what? I very much doubt that everybody's going to. You're going to see families coming together. You're going to see everybody going to pubs. And there should be some common sense on this, and there hasn't been. But again, just highlights the teams in the Premier League. It's all about money. It's all about lining their own pockets. Realistically, compared to the amount of money that comes into the Premier League, the gate receipts that have been lost represent, for example, Newcastle represent over the course of one year would represent around 10%-ish of their commercial revenue. It's a big loss to anybody. If you were to turn around to anybody watching this now, you're going to lose 10% of your monthly wage. It's going to hurt anybody, but it isn't make or break. And I think I think they could have done without it. They don't need that extra money, and they could have just continued to make this accessible to everybody. Of course, it's going to have a detrimental effect on the fee that teams, the Premier League in general will get in TV revenue moving forward. But I think in the short term, the common sense approach would just to be continue it free.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I really do. Andrew says, sorry, back to Project Big Six. If something happened to a Big Six owner and they needed a takeover, could one of the other 5 veto this?
That's a really interesting question, but I'm sure they'd find a way. I'm sure they'd find a way of sorting themselves out. They always do. They always have.
Paul says, no makeup artist can fix you, Liam. So, and Mark says, as long as you don't look like Donald Trump, which is it's another good thing. Darren's asking if I'm going to get a swanky studio. Well, if you all continue to put a membership fee and join, that would be great. I don't mind people subscribing, but you never know. You never know. But if we ever get out of COVID, we'd nice to think we could. I might just do it from the office. I've got a good backdrop in there, and it's got better internet than Virgin at my place, I tell you. John says, hi, guys. Great show. Is there any news on the BN Sports PSG owner court case? Is he going to jail? If he does, the EPL have some interesting conversations coming up.
Yeah, it's again going into this can of worms, isn't it? I don't know what's happening with that case exactly. Again, like we've talked on here, it isn't something that's been largely publicised in the UK, but we'll wait and see. We'll wait with bated breath to see what happens on that regard. But we do know is an absolute fact that beIN Sports tried to influence the Premier League's decision on the Newcastle United takeover. And it'll be so interesting to see if somebody does manage to disclose any of this information. It'll be a fantastic thing to read through and see. Even if this goes, we know we've been wronged in this sense as Newcastle United fans. The club themselves, Mike Ashley knows that as well, and so do the buyers. It's only the Premier League who seem to be sort of sticking their fingers in their ears and humming away.
Yeah, okay, man. I want to move on to the Supporters Trust. Obviously, they've got their elections this week. We've got Adam Beckett, who we've been supporting on this show, and he's, he came on, made his points very eloquently, and from our perspective, we think he'd make a fantastic candidate for the new board. But have you looked into the candidates, and have you voted?
I am a member. I haven't voted. I have mixed feelings on the whole thing, I'll be honest with you, Steve. I'm not sure that the trust is representative of me. This is me taking my journalist hat off, because I do respect the trust, and I really respect the work that the people at the top of that trust, in recent months in particular. I respect the work that they've done. But it's a personal decision. I'm a member. I should vote. I just haven't, because I've not really been sure and not known enough about the people involved to say either way. I just really hope that everybody out there and people who best of luck to every single person that's put themselves forward, because you'll know yourself, Steve, those kind of positions that can be thankless tasks sometimes, and fingers crossed that the right kind of people get in and can make a difference, which is what ultimately the Supporters Trust is there for, to improve the lot for fans, Newcastle United fans, and to bridge that gap between the silent club and a very vocal fan base.
Mm-hmm. David Crone says the people who set these prices are probably on huge salaries, so think it's acceptable. Dan saying, Liam, if you were to have a guess, what would be your thoughts on the takeover happening before Christmas?
Good question, Dan. Do you know what? I think if the takeover was allowed to play out for as long as it may well take, I believe that the legal standpoint from a number of different aspects would see this deal pushed through. Whether it's allowed to play out for that long, I'm not sure. So I genuinely, I have high hopes that something can be done, but I'm going to continue to sit on the fence to see whether I do believe it will get done. But and I know a lot of people out there are really, really skeptical, and I totally understand the skepticism. It's not been an easy process throughout this. We've all been hit hard with pullouts, with negative stories throughout this process. But hopefully, for everybody out there that sort of lived this with all of us, there will be some kind of positive outcome, because I still think, even though Mike Ashley is fighting our corner, and he is fighting our corner, he wants this deal done, not necessarily for exactly the same reasons as we do, but he does want this deal done. But I think he knows, and we know, that the idea of Mike Ashley for the next few years as Newcastle United owner is quite unpalatable. And he wants his money and he wants out. And fingers crossed, he can pull enough strings. He can push this deal through with Justin Barnes and with PIF and with PCP and the Rubens, because there really could be a bright future for this football club. And I do believe in a legal standpoint as well. No matter, even if the Premier League were to brush through and get this this Big Six rubbish all the way through, and brought enacted into Premier League law, I still believe you can't change the game halfway through. And I think the legal arguments that have been put forward so far would still stand. And Newcastle United could even still be pushed through if everyone remains at the table beyond any decision made by the Big Six or this Project Rubbish, I'll start calling it, I think.
Project Rubbish. It sounds got a ring to it. Billy Taylor says, do you think the takeover will go through without court action?
There's a definite possibility, because you do wonder whether the Premier League would want this to go to court. They have. There's been a lot of talks that seem worried. I'm not sure they do seem worried. I think they seem like an organisation who are quite sort of steadfast in their idea that they've got a legal standpoint, and they're standing by it. Otherwise, I think they probably would have crumbled by now. But they are spinning a lot of plates, so we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, Mark says, isn't Stabley's court case finished this week? It's certainly coming to the end. Not 100%. Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens. Ron says Liam should be head of the football at the Chronicle. Best journalist since John Gibson and Alan Oliver. High praise indeed, Liam.
No, thank you, Ron. I really anybody with it's really nice just to you get so much rubbish on Twitter and other social media over the years. It's really nice to see being a really positive space in this YouTube, which is why I keep coming back every week. Steve keeps inviting us on because it is such a positive bubble to be in, and it's really good to see that the work that I do out there is reflecting positively on people out there.
Michael Hurst says, hi, Steve. Liam, question for both of you. If you were Prime Minister, I know you would get involved with the takeover. Would you have fans in the stadium, social distance? What would you do? My answer to that would be yes, because my belief on this whole COVID thing now, unfortunately, is that it's run its course as far as, us all trying to stay at home and save lives. I think we're past the point of this now. I think it's reached a point where we can't go on anymore doing that. I think if we all get locked down for another 3 or 4 weeks, which is what people are talking about, what's it going to do? It's just going to delay it. We're not going to get rid of it. We'll come back out 4 weeks later, and then it all starts again. So it's just prolonging it. If there's no vaccine, which of course it takes 6 or 7 years for a vaccine to start, to come to fruition, I personally feel we're at the point now where we're all grown adults. Most of us are grown adults. We get told what to do, and we do it. If you're high risk, if you're obese, if you're in a certain age group, if you've got underlying health conditions, then it's going to hit you harder than it's going to hit maybe somebody who is of school age or who's of college age. So for my personal opinion, I feel we're at a point where now we should all be given the guidance and we take our chances. I think that's what it is. And people might think that's a bit callous. They might think it's a bit harsh. Apologies if someone's lost somebody who's watching the show out there tonight, but I just feel that we're not going to get anywhere by sitting at home. We're going to end up with an economy that's ruined. We're going to end up with millions unemployed, millions more unemployed, an economy that will never recover. And this country was already, on its way down. And don't forget, we've still got to sort Brexit out. And it's not a political show and it's not a political party broadcast. But I personally feel that if we don't go to this herd immunity style, I personally feel that things are just going to get a whole lot worse. So with regards to football, I'd have them all back in if I was Prime Minister. I'd have I'd have everyone open. I'd have the bars open, the nightclubs open. I'd have the football stadiums open. I'd have the lot open. And I would have gone for herd immunity from the start. I would have made sure as well that we've got the tried and tested, the tested stuff sorted out. Because if a guy in Rwanda can sort it out, how can't somebody in Britain sort it out? They've got the best testing facilities in Rwanda. It beggars belief, but
no surprise with Boris in charge. And that isn't an attack at the Tories. That's an attack on him. He was always a buffoon, and he's proved it. He can't manage the country, and I think we're at a point now where we should have a change, a Winston Churchill-like change. Put somebody in place, or put people in place who know what the hell they're doing. Rant over. Liam.
Come on, I want to see in the comments now that was a Steve Hasty style from Steve Wraith there.
There'll be plenty of comments, I bet.
Bit controversial, Steve. Right, so I would definitely have fans back in. The reason why I would have fans back in is because I think we're seeing a little bit of an uneven play out here. You can still go to the cinema, you can still go into bars. There's big enough. It's outdoor. There's big enough spaces at football grounds for people to be in. So I think yes, I would definitely have football fans back in. I've championed this before. I think it's a massive thing for a lot of people, and it gets overlooked by a few. It is a big mental health. It's something that people towards the end of the week really look forward to, and that element being taken out has been quite damaging to a lot of people. I see these people reach out to me on Twitter, and yes, I think I'm not going to go as far as the herd immunity, but I do think, you know what, I'm not going to talk about political allegiances. I know what my personal take is on that, but obviously I'm not going to preach politics to anybody out there. But I do find the government, in a lot of ways, have a bit of an unenviable task. They're having to make massive decisions which have a big impact on a lot of people, and they're having to sort of balance a lot of things, balance people's well-being, balance the economy, and it's a really, really difficult decision because, like you said, Steve, the economy was failing anyway, largely. We're in a really difficult spot, but yeah, I think. Someone said get the spelks out your backside, but I'm going to sit on the fence on that one. I'm not going to criticise too much, but what I will say is I would definitely have a percentage of fans. If they can do it in Germany, they can do it Adolf Wraith.
Oh my God. Bill says stick to football. I will, mate. I got asked a question, that's all. George says treat people like adults. Very true. Well said, Steve. If you're in the vulnerable bracket, the government should support you. If you're not, then get on with it and get the country back. The virus is going to virus, says George. Yeah, I mean, it's an awful situation to be in, Liam. And, you know, I although I have attacked Boris there, you know, Keir Starmer, I've heard him tonight, doesn't seem to have an answer. You know, it's all very well being in the opposition seat, you know, because you haven't got to take the responsibility. But nobody really has an answer. But this has gone on for long enough now for all of us to have an opinion, and yes, that is my opinion. I mean, I speak, you know, I know a few people who work for the NHS. The COVID beds and the COVID wards are still empty, despite Sky managing to find 2 people on ventilators today. You know, in a hospital. I'm sure it's easy to find, but the word I've got from people up here who work in various hospitals is the COVID wards are empty still. I mean, that's not to say that it won't increase as the cases rise, but this area is completely infected. Yeah, but they've just banged 1,000 students into the university up here and stuck them all in their digs. And they've all got COVID, but none of them have died. They've all got COVID, but that surely that fudges our figures a little bit. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It's just a nightmare situation. Nobody could have predicted this. And the initial question was about football. And you know, if I was Prime Minister, that's what I would do. A hell of a question. And of course. Steve Statham ran. Yeah, I got called Jason Statham last night. It was a classic on the girls' show. Like I said, the guy's obviously the guy or the girl, whoever said it's obviously got great eyesight. Nicholas says the problem with herd immunity is that you can get COVID more than once. There is no instant herd immunity. Another good point. Steve, stick on a little square mustache. I never said that though. I'll get locked up here because he lives in Germany, of course.
If Dowden can allow large numbers to get together to watch a ballet, including himself, then why can't we have limited numbers at football matches? I'm voting for you, Steve. Laura, thanks for that. She says RBI is getting busy, so it's obviously on the increase. That's a different opinion on that. Paul says over 60 myself, Steve, so a bit more worried than you, but something has to change. I'm only 12 years behind you, Paul. But yeah, I understand that. You know, both my parents are in their 60s, and both got completely different opinions. My dad is very cautious. You know, he has the mask. He was wearing gloves right at the start of this. He wouldn't come in the house. Insisted if he came to my house, he stood in the garden. My mum's the complete opposite. My mum was a nurse for 34 years. She said she's not concerned about it at all. She's had cancer in the past, and she personally is just getting on with it. She said our mental welfare is more important than our health, because she says she can't sit in the house for another few months, especially coming up to Christmas. She just personally feels that it's time to get out, and she's been there, done it, got the T-shirt. She said there's no vaccine, and there won't be a vaccine for this. We've never cured AIDS, we've never cured measles, we've never cured anything else. So yeah, look, it's God knows what the answer to this is, and that would be it. Fungo Freddy, you saw the lies that Sky put about Tommy Robinson, the nasty protest. It was later revealed it was against. It was getting locked up. See, this is the thing as well. News. And this is completely off topic for this show, but news, if you sit and watch Sky News and you read the Sun newspaper, you're going to get one mindset of news. If you go and watch the BBC and read the Daily Mail, you're going to get something else. It's all about opinions, and it's you're influenced by news. Got to have your own opinion, I think. Don't just get sucked in by the news.
Steve, I think you made a quite important point when you're talking about your parents there, that's two people who live in the same household, two totally different life experiences, and two people who've taken totally different decisions. And I think that's the important thing that I take from it, is that as long as everybody is sensible, takes precautions, because we have still got to treat this with some degree of seriousness, whether you believe it or not, and which are some people out there don't believe it even. But I think we've all got to try, and if everybody tries to be, keep the social distance, wear your masks where you need to, then surely that's going to help everybody and limit the spread of the disease to some extent. And for me, I think if everybody treats it with a little bit of respect, but also goes about their daily business in the way that they have been. A lot of people that I know have been treating this pandemic with respect, with wearing the mask when they go into certain public areas, not mixing with ridiculous amounts of people. So there is a big difference in the UK now from what it was maybe at the start of the year. And one thing that you did mention was mental health. You said your mum obviously values her mental health really highly, and as we all do, and we've spoke about this on here before, and you've had people on your show talking about this as well. And one thing that I would point to, which I hear a lot of people, maybe some who don't have children, and they talk about, well, obviously the school's going back, that's a big problem. But to me, we've got 3 children in this household, young and old. And I genuinely think locking them up away while me and my wife have full-time jobs, both in the media industry, and we actually were classed as key workers. We chose not to take that up because to me writing about a football team isn't a key worker. Those places should be for doctors and nurses and police officers and whoever else is needed. So we were still classed as key workers, but chose not to go down that avenue. My wife works for North Tyneside Council. So for me, keeping 3 kids locked up in the house where we're doing the homeschooling, they're not seeing family, they're not mixing with people their own age at really key points in their life. The schools, to me, is the key thing. It has to stay open, even though it potentially could be spreading silently around schools, because children's mental health means as much. My children's mental health means more than mine does, for example. Yeah. Adults' mental health and children's mental health are equally as important throughout this process. And I think we're in a position as adults to be able to deal with this situation slightly better, some better than others. Unfortunately, it's a shame that some may not be able to deal with it. But I think children's mental health is something that often gets overlooked. And them going to school every day, having that having that process, having that routine is something that is really, really key. Rather than just sitting at home, getting up in their jammies, playing on their pad a little bit, or their laptop, or whatever it may be, watching Tiny Pop on the TV. There'll be people out there who can relate to that. And then obviously parents having to dip in and out as well as keep a full-time job and keep that money flowing into the pot. As having to homeschool, it is a really challenging thing. So I think for everybody's mental health, to me, the schools staying open in some way, shape or form is key, particularly for my children anyway.
I agree 100%. Jinky says we're defending Tommy Robinson. No, we read a post out by somebody who mentioned Tommy Robinson. There was no defending of Tommy Robinson on this show, and it's got nothing to do either with what we're talking about anyway. Do we not think it's the number of fans on public transport after games rather than at stadiums, which is a concern? No, I think it's the stadiums, because of the way that you walk around the stadium, you get rounded, etc. Paul, I do agree that track and testing is the big failure. Nicholas says 10 out of 10 for you, Liam. Tim says another diverse show, Steve. It certainly has been, obviously, because the fans direct the narrative. Liam, would you keep the same team that beat Burnley before the international break, or would you change it against Man United? So yeah, let's look ahead to the game at the weekend. Newcastle United versus Manchester United. Normally a game we all look forward to, one of the first fixtures we look at, and from our perspective, we're not going to be able to go to it, but some of us probably won't even watch it now because of the greed of the Premier League. But would you keep the same team?
I think it's going to be a horses for courses, and Steve Bruce has to this week analyse the way that Manchester United play. I've got to be honest, I haven't seen a lot of them this season. My focus has mainly been on Newcastle United, but I will be doing some research over this week to see what I would pick. I think there's got to be a case made for Ryan Fraser, given that he's been at the club training now for months. He played a full 85 minutes for Scotland the other day. There's got to be a case to say that Ryan Fraser would come into the side in some form of capacity, because he's a player that not only adds an attacking threat, he's also a grafter, and we haven't seen a lot of him yet. But I would be in some way, shape or form try to shoehorn him into the side. I can see Steve Bruce's logic to an extent with keeping Jeff Hendrick in the side on the right-hand side. He doesn't fit that role. He doesn't look good out there. It isn't best for his game. But I can kind of get why he's trying to do it with the balance of having such an attacking forward and Alan St. Maximin on the other side. I can see why maybe he wants Hendrick to do a bit more graft and tuck in on that right-hand side. But for me, yes, I would definitely look to bring in Ryan Fraser for Jeff Hendrick. That would be my choice. And I would keep Joe Linton in the side.
I would.
Joe Linton is steadily improving. I've said it before in here, we need to forget about the price tag. We need to forget about what's gone before. If Newcastle United can get any kind of tune out of that player, he's part of the 25-man squad, so a better Joe Linton is better than nothing. You know what I mean? It's better than what we
I
had
agree.
last. So we've got to get a tune out of him, and he's improving, so keep him in.
Agree, mate. Darren, thank you. Your message says, I've been furloughed since March, will be redundant from the 1st of November since I'm in aviation. Thank you and everybody involved in these podcasts, which have kept me sane. Not a problem, mate. We're going to continue them as well all the way throughout the season, because we won't be going back to St James's Park anytime soon. Funko Freddy's just asking, will we be covering the game on Saturday? Yes, 100%, mate. I'll have one eye on the boxing and one eye on the football. So yes, we will be covering the game on Saturday night with a match day live. Dave says, agree with Fraser, man of the match for the Jocks the other night. He certainly was. If you can say Jocks now, is that politically correct? Jack Chater says, Hendrick shouldn't start again. Miggy offers so much more. Hendrick should be playing in the right position, Jack, to my honest opinion. And when you watch him play for Scotland in the middle, he definitely plays well. And Steve Bruce is going to have to sort that conundrum out. Jason says, we'll see the comparison from Sunday's stream of the 5-0 against Man United. I think we can nick a win, but the level of football will be way inferior. Paul says, great show, lads. Same as most of the content. Keep up the good work. From not a mag, but Thank you very much, Paul. I know you're an Aston Villa fan. It's nice of you to tune in and enjoy it. We'll take Shelby out and put Hendrick in the middle and Fraser on the right. Belly's just tuning in. Project Big Picture, more like Project Big Greed. And Jeff, thank you. He says, a very good show again. Covered more subjects tonight. That's for sure. We certainly did. Go on, we'll give you a last question. But one more question. Would you put Dubravka straight back in, or do you feel Darlow's done enough to continue in goal until proven otherwise? I'd put Dubravka straight back in, Daniel. Liam?
Yes, I would do the same in usual circumstances. And then I would always have it in mind that I think, you know what, Martin Dubravka's got enough cash in the bank. You know what I mean? He's been a fantastic player since the day he was signed, barely missed a minute. And I think it's a shame for Caldolo, but the thing is he's come in and taken his opportunity. I think a lot of the conversations we had over the summer were, is Caldolo a good enough number 2 to step in? There was a lot of people worried out there. And I think he's proven, even if he isn't great on Sunday, he's proven that he's done really well, and he's a really solid Premier League number 2. Whether he'd want to be a number 1 consistently, I'm not sure, but I do actually put his performances down to the addition of Mark Gillespie as well, because with Rob Elliott there, Robbie Elliott was never really in favour. He was always a number 3. He was never going to push, but that injection of a goalkeeper who came in wanting to be a number 2, having played a full season, albeit in Scotland, having played a full season and done really well up there, that you've got a player come in and push Caldolo all the way. And I think we've seen some positive performances because of that.
Happy birthday to John Cornwell today, a player who I didn't mind, actually. He wasn't as bad as some of the other players we've had in over the course of time. And happy birthday to the man who last lifted a trophy for Newcastle United, Scott Parker. There he is with the Intertoto Cup. Well, Intertoto tile, I think it is, but currently the manager of Fulham. Many happy returns to Scott Parker. Just at the time to remind you of the Christmas party, which we will be holding at the Tyneside Irish Centre. We have 29 tickets left for the Christmas party. The money's going to Newcastle Food Bank, hosted by myself. Lee Clark will be coming to do a Q&A. Liam's going to pop along. Hopefully Malcolm and Gibbo will certainly have some of the lads and lasses from the other shows as well. Tyneside Irish Centre, Friday the 4th of April. You can get your tickets from newcastlelegends.com. You can also buy your snazzy t-shirts, which we have been wearing over the last couple of weeks, and you can get that from newcastlelegends.com as well. Liam, just time to give a little push as to where you ply your trade.
Yeah, so the Shields Gazette, we've got a little promotion on at the moment. I've said on here numerous times, regular listeners will know, we don't work on a clickbait idea. We don't need numerous clicks. We work on a subscription model. We're trying to provide a bit more of an in-depth coverage of Newcastle United, push the little hole that there's in the market. We're trying to cover that. And if you guys value what I do, you can go online now and you can actually buy a package whereby you will get all sporting coverage of Newcastle United and Sunderland for the full season up until May next year. And that costs around £30, which to me, when you divide that up over the course of every weekend, you'll get between now and then. That's your pre-match stuff, your post-match stuff, your blogs on the day, your exclusive transfer news, which we've had plenty of this summer, exclusive takeover news, which we've had even more of this summer. If you value that kind of thing, then journalism costs, unfortunately, and the type of journalism that we do also costs. It's the way the industry's going. If you value it and you like what I do on here, please, honestly, come on and subscribe. I've pinned something on my Twitter profile. It's at Liam J. Kennedy 23. So anybody who's interested can afford. I understand these times are difficult for everybody. But if you can afford, if you can help, that'll be a big boost to us anyway.
No, great stuff, Liam, as always, mate. And people who were asking about our other programme we did over the weekend was brilliant, well researched by Liam. We did a look back at the managers who've managed Newcastle United under Mike Ashley's reign, and we had a vote on our Facebook page. And you could join our Facebook page, which is just NUFC Matters, and you join the group and join the debate on there. But the man who came out on top of the worst managers under Mike Ashley was Big Joe Kinnear. Yes, who can forget that rant that he had against Simon Bird? But yeah, well worth watching that show back if you want to remind yourself of all those horrendous managers we've had and a couple of half decent ones. And of course, the best coach in the world, John Carver. Liam, thanks again, mate. Look forward to having you on again next week, and we might catch you over the weekend as well with the match, mate. Take care. Good night. Have a good night.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.